Welcome back to Black Rattle Life. If you're new to the channel, thanks for joining, and I'm Dave. I'm back under the house again this week, but I promise Melinda does let me in the house inside occasionally. Today I want to talk about installing posts and beams on the helical piles. This is the first step in our build process that actually moves upwards. Our last one went into the ground. If you were to build a house on a foundation, at this point you would be scheduling an inspection of your concrete foundation or your frost wall, and that would have to wait until after the forms had come off and the cement had, or the concrete had cured significantly. But since we built on helical piles and the engineer had set out the schedule of what needs to be done in a form called a Form 4, which means that they take responsibility for the build, not the building official, we had to have an installation report that came back from the engineer. So once we get that, then we give that to our building official and we get permission to go ahead with the build. Before we get started this morning, I'd like to take a few minutes to really thank our volunteer firefighters, our DNRR firefighters, wildland firefighters, and all the first responders that are responding to the local wildfire that's not that far from us. This morning the wind changed direction and the smoke rolled in where we are, and we couldn't see across our lake. The smoke was so thick, it was really, made your eyes water, your nose burn. So we had to turn our air exchanger off, close all the windows and doors to keep the smoke out of the house. We had to put the cats inside. They really love being out on the deck, but not today. And then we had to pack up and go to our daughter's house to do some work on her place, because she's also building a new house and she's doing a little bit different process than we're following. Hopefully we can get some of the videos and put them up after we finish our build. We'll show you the process that she went through, some of the pitfalls and how we came around them. But once again, thanks to all the volunteer firefighters and all the first responders that are in the woods in the heat. Nova Scotia is suffering a drought right now, and we haven't had a significant rain since the end of May or the 1st of June. As you can see behind me, I've got buckets and fish boxes along the drip line of the house, trying to catch any rain that we do get. It's supposed to rain tomorrow, and hopefully that helps with the wildfire. But in order to keep our garden alive, without going out and buying a pump and setting up a water system for irrigation, our well is a dug well, and it's running fairly low. So we're trying to salvage water wherever we can. As we showed in the last video, the uphill row of posts were marked with a laser level and cut off with a metal blade. This row of posts became the benchmark for the rest of the posts and beams. We were unsure of the time it would take to get the report and a reply from the building official, but both were quite quick, and we had a few days to wait for our posts and beams to arrive. We were new to the whole process, and scheduling became a challenge. On one of our first days off, we took a walk on the beach with our daughter, who was visiting home from Alberta. We got lucky and had a beautiful day in December on a North Atlantic beach. Then we got a phone call that our first load of building supplies would arrive, and shortly after that we got notified that our trusses, which had been scheduled for the end of January, were coming the first half of December. As luck would have it, both deliveries arrived at the same time, and after some jockeying, we got both sets on the ground and ready to go. Now that we were ready to go, I suffered my first crisis of confidence. How do I make sure that my posts are level and square and plumb with everything? I wish I'd known how easy it was to buy a laser level. It would have made life a lot simpler. We started with the upper piles, which only had a beam sitting on top of them. We found the straightest board we could find and laid it across several of the piles. Using a level, we adjusted the saddles up or down until the board was level. We repeated this until we had gone the whole way across. To double check, we used a string pulled taut across the saddles to make sure there was no waves in the line. A slight imperfection in the board would have done this. The beams atop the post are triple laminated, pressure treated planks. We cut the first row of the planks so that the joints landed on the piles. Our house is 40 feet long, and we made this row longer so we could adjust later as we squared up the beams on either side. This part was relatively easy. We now had a straight level row of planks that gave us the level that everything else had to match. Next, we stood up a 6x6 post in one of the end saddles. We fastened it temporarily with short deck screws to hold it upright, and we used a post level to get this post plumb and braced it temporarily. Next, we picked straight floor joist and rested one end on the uphill planks. Using a level, we raised the other end against the post until the plank showed level. We fastened it to the post with screws to hold it in place. We repeated this process with the post at the other end of the row. When both end posts marked level with the upper beams, we could stand the rest of the posts, and using a string, we marked the heights of the remaining posts. It was time to cut the posts, and we double-checked the blueprints to make sure we were using the right type of beam, drop versus a flush beam, and took a deep breath and cut the posts. We stood the posts up and attached brackets to the top with structural screws. These are strong screws that will hold the stresses on the house in the wind. Deck screws are not strong enough for this and should never be used in a structural context. Then we laid the first row of planks for the second beam temporarily, fixing them in the brackets with deck screws. Now we had two parallel beams started, but we had to figure out how to make sure the joists were square. Every mistake at the floor level magnifies as you go up, so it's important to get it right. We started with a mark for one corner on the beam. We set a floor joist on this mark, and using a framing square we lined up with on the opposite beam. We repeated at the other end, making sure that the start point on the same side was exactly 40 feet. With both ends of the beam tacked in, we measured corner to corner to see if it was perfectly square. We moved and remeasured several times until the measurement was right on. With the ends of the boards marked, we cut them to that mark and put them back in the brackets fastened in place. One more measurement to make sure that there were no miscuts and that nothing had shifted while we were moving them around, and we were ready to build the beams. Laminated beams are constructed by gluing and nailing together layers of 2-inch thick boards. With the first row of each beam laid out, we laid and cut the other 2 layers of each beam and labeled them. Construction adhesive is put on the lengths of the board in a zigzag pattern. The glued board is placed against the starting board with the glue sandwiched between them. The boards are nailed together with 2 nails every 12 inches, 1.5 inches from the top and bottom. Once both beams were done, we tacked a couple of floor joists in place to keep it straight while the glue cured. When we went to repeat the process for the deck, we discovered that the piles we had were misaligned. This held us up, but we were able to work on the floor while we waited for it to be fixed. We next cut the braces for the posts to keep them from shifting side to side. We cut braces from an 8-foot 6x6, giving 2 4-foot braces cut 45 degrees on each end. These are fastened in with 2 8-inch structural screws on each end. It took a 1/2-inch hammer drill to drive those screws home. Once the braces were on, we had to nail all the brackets in place permanently. There are special nails for attaching supporting metal brackets. They look like stubby roofing nails with smaller heads. Every hole in a bracket needs a nail. Miss one, you'll fail your inspection. Also, the saddles and brackets have larger holes for lag bolts. Each side is fastened with a 4-inch lag bolt and a washer. For the nails, we found that a palm nailer worked the best. It is in tight spots and they are short for me to hold with large fingers. You're going to drive a lot of these nails. It's worth the investment in my opinion. I used an impact driver to put the lag bolts in. They take a lot of force to install. Again, worth the investment. The other braces go in once the floor joists are installed. Hopefully you were able to follow my description of the process. I know I glossed over it pretty quickly, but hopefully it works for you. If you found it helpful, please hit like. And if you'd like to keep seeing the process, hit subscribe and the bell icon to get notified of upcoming videos as new content drops. If you have comments or questions, leave a comment below and I'll try my best to get back to you. Well, when I'm sitting here working or doing anything, Lucy loves to climb up on my shoulder. She's like my little parrot. She's really curious about what I'm doing.
She especially likes it on a cool day like this when it's when I've got my flannel shirt on. She loves the feel of it.
Molly and Lucy came to us in 2021, shortly after we had lost our other cat. They are sisters. Molly is the cuddliest of the cats. Woody was a feral kitten that we discovered in a woodpile. We named him Woodrow, which just happens to be my grandfather's name. Woody weighed just 14 ounces when we found him, and I bottle fed him for several weeks. Lucy is the explorer in the group. You never know where she will be, and she hides really well. Molly and Lucy let us know when it is mealtime for the feral cats that we feed, although they seem to get the message across pretty well on their own. We name the ferals to keep track of them, but their numbers fluctuate. This year seems to have been really hard on them, and we are down to 4 or 5 that we feed regularly. Now we have one little kitten that lasted out of the last batch, and it's really cute. We haven't named him, but I think we're leaning towards Smokey.